What's up guys, today I'm going to be going over the whole new armor charge system, breaking down how it works and some of the best builds you can make with it, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll understand the system and learn how to use the mods for your builds and all that good stuff. I think the initial reaction to the system is it's overall a lot worse than the previous one, which I think is right in a lot of ways, but at the same time it really isn't that bad and it's just overall a simplified version of what we had. So let's just jump into all that good stuff. So before I begin, one thing that's very important this season and potentially in future seasons is the artifact is now instant unlock perks, which means as long as you have them unlocked, they apply to your character, which means you don't need them on your armor, freeing up armor slots. But more importantly, in the second column, there are now these authorized mods, one for solar, strand, void, and grenades. And the grenade one is very important this season, in my opinion, for builds, is because what these mods do is reduce the armor mod cost for all the different mods using that type of element, or in this case grenades. So for example, something like Ashes to Assets, which usually costs 3 energy, now only costs 1 if you have that artifact mod unlocked, and that's going to work for all of the grenade mods in the game, so that's going to be really good. So at its core, the way the armor charge system works is you create orbs. Picking them up will give you an armor charge, and that is the very simplified version of how this system works. And now going into more details of all the different mods you can use. First off, since you have to pick up orbs, you have to generate orbs. So outside of your super or fragments, the way to do that is they'll be on your helmet with the siphon mods, which will create orbs on rapid weapon kills with kinetic weapons or one of each element. You have all the different options to choose from, and in artifact there are ones that combo different elements together, which is pretty useful. But generally you want to be matching this one to your primary of choice. Then on the gauntlets you also have firepower, which will create orbs on grenade final blows, along with the melee one, heavy-handed, where your powered melee final blows will create orbs of power. Then there's also one on your class item, which is disabled right now, Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn in an orb of power, which I think is very useful, but unfortunately it is disabled right now. There are some other ones that are less important. Empowered Finish. Finisher final blows grant you 1 temporary armor charge if you don't have one. Then there's also the Shield Break Charge. Breaking a combatant shield with the matching damage type will grant you 1 armor charge. But mostly you're going to have 1 siphon matching your primary, then 1 matching whatever ability you're spamming. And all these mods say equipping multiple copies of this mod increases the potency of the generated orb. So having 2 firepowers does not create 2 orbs per grenade final blow. What it does is make the orb give you more super, I believe, but it's definitely not noticeable at all. So far the way the system works is use your grenade, get rapid weapon final blows, and pick up an orb to get stacks of armor charge. So what can you do with these armor charges? Well, there's going to be 2 different things you can really do. The first one is going to be these gold/yellow ones right here, the kickstarts. And reading what the grenade one does, when your grenade energy is fully expended, you gain grenade energy. Then additionally, your armor charge is consumed, which means all the stacks you currently have, and you gain additional grenade energy for each stack. There's also going to be one for your melee. Then there's going to be one that will give you an increase to resilience when your shields are broken, so basically protective light. I'm not sure what the percent on this is, but if I had to guess, it's going to be pretty similar to what protective light was. Then we also have utility kickstart to get a chunk of our class ability back, along with all of these different finisher ones, which will give you an effect when you do a finisher and consume a varying amount of armor charges. These include things like special finisher, along with all the ones that were currently in the game before, that would before cost you super energy, and now they cost you armor charges. So overall, the gold mods will consume all of your charges instantly and give you an effect back, usually a chunk of ability or something like that. And all of these mods, when you inspect them, say applying additional copies of this mod will increase the effect. So looking at how that actually works, so there's going to be a lot of things that determine this, right? So how many of these mods you have on, then also how many stacks of armor charge you have. So first with just 1 grenade kickstart on and no charges at all, just like the base amount you get back, as you see, it's going to be maybe 10-15%. Then if we go ahead and put on 2, it really isn't that big of a noticeable increase, maybe like 5% more. That's going to be the case for a lot of these mods. When you apply it more and more, it's going to be increasingly less benefit to the effect. So now with 4 charges and throwing my grenade, I get about 50% back. Now with 2 grenade kickstarts, once again with 4 armor charges, really the same amount back. So once again, as you stack higher and higher, it doesn't really seem to be that much of a noticeable increase. And you can finally get up to 6 charges, and once again, maybe like 5% more, but really not that much more. Then the second part of the system that uses armor charges is going to be the blue ones, the fonts. So font of focus, you gain a bonus to discipline while you have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. And there's going to be a lot of these you can use. And the whole way this works now is when we pick up the orb, not only do we get a armor charge, but now you see a timer next to it, which means once that timer's up, you will automatically lose 1 armor charge. But the entire time you have them, you will get that benefit. And there's going to be a lot of these mods to choose from. There's going to be 1 for each stat for the fonts. So discipline, resilience, recovery, mobility, strength, and whatever else I'm missing, I forget. But more importantly, there is also going to be the weapon surges on your boots, which will be what the old font of might was, the damage increase to your weapons, which still stacks with everything in the game. And there's going to be 1 for every single type of damage type in the game, including kinetic. And just like all the previous mods, you can stack multiple of these on top of each other to increase the effect. And the cool thing about both the fonts and the weapon surges, since all you need is a armor charge for them to work, you can really overlap as many as you want and get all the effects at once, and it kind of feeds into each other very nicely, unlike the gold mods, which instantly consume all the stacks and don't really work together. These ones, you're more than welcome to apply as many as you can, but the unfortunate part is while you can use multiple at once, their effects are pretty low in terms of the fonts, and unfortunately, like I was assuming they would be, all they do is increase your stat to tier 10. So for example, with discipline, I threw my grenade without it with tier 10, then I put the discipline font on and had armor charges the entire time, and to the exact frame, they were the same amount of time to get my grenade back. So all these do is increase your stat to tier 10. If your armor already is at tier 10, these will give you no benefit at all. So with that being said, the point of the fonts is to basically boost up any of your stats that you don't have at tier 10 yet. So for example, I usually have tier 10 resilience and discipline, but if I ran a recovery one, mobility one, I could max out those stats too, and potentially you could have tier 10 of every stat at all times. And now moving on to the weapon surges. So these ones will be able to stack. So with just 1 kinetic weapon surge, looking at damage on Carl with my Izanagi burden, looking at how these work, first without the weapon surge, I hit for 32,000, go and pick up an orb, get it for quite a while, and now with ×1, it goes up to 36,000, putting on 2 kinetic weapon surges, picking up the orb once again, the damage now will go up to 38,000, and finally with all 3 kinetic weapon surges, looking at damage on Carl, pick up the orb, it is now going to be over 40,000. So with ×1, it's 10%, 2, 17, and with 3, 22. So 1 is a 10% increase. Then the secondary one gives you 7% more, and the third one gives you 5% more, but that's still going to be a noticeable increase. And with this stacking with other buffs in the game, that's obviously going to be extremely important. So what I like to do generally with my surges is run 1 for kinetic, because I'm using something like Wither Horde or Izanagi's Burden, then run 2 of the 1 matching your heavy, and generally you want your heavy and your energy primary to match up, that way you get benefit for both at the same time. So my Izanagi will get the 10%, while both my primary and my heavy will get that 17%. I feel like that is the right balance. You can make the case for just purely boss fights to swap to triple arc or triple whatever it is for your power weapon, but I think having the 10% for the Izanagi is also pretty good. And moving on to the final type of mods, the green ones, which will alter the way the armor charges work or last. Starting with time dilation, your decaying armor charges have a longer duration. And just like before, you can stack as many of these as you want, up to 3. So first, without, as we showed off throughout the video, pick up an orb. The armor charge will last for 10 seconds with no time dilation on. Then we put it on 1. It will go up to 15 seconds, I believe. as you see right here. Then with 2, which I think is the sweet spot, it will go up to 18. So +5, then +3 for 2. Then with 3, it only goes up to 20, so only +2. So overall, I think the sweet spot is just using 2 of those. There's also stacks on stacks still, which is every time you pick up an orb of power, you gain 1 additional stack of armor charge. So instead of getting 1, you get 2. And you cannot use multiple copies of stacks on stacks, so generally you only need 1. And I think this will work better for the kickstart mods, where having more stacks equals more energy when you use your ability, because with the font and surges, with time dilation, you don't really need more stacks. You're gonna have that at all times. Another green mod is gonna be charged up. By default, you can only carry 3 armor charges at a time, but with charged up, every single one will give you +1, so 4, 5, and 6 if you have 3, which once again I think will be better for the kickstart style mods, where you want to get as many armor charges as you can, use your ability, and get a huge chunk of that ability back, compared to the font and surges, where they're time-based, and really having, 6 charges compared to having 1 that you constantly just pick up an orb really is no different. And a final few of the green mods I didn't show off in this video so far, Powerful Friends and Radiant Light, I believe, is the one next to it. Both of these will make it so when you pick up an orb of power, the allies nearby also get an armor charge, and Radiant Light will be when you pop your super, it will give your nearby allies an armor charge. But I think both of these aren't too useful, so in boss fights with Well of Radiance, one person will just pop the well, which will create orbs right there, and as long as your teammates have time dilation and their surges on, they will get that weapon increase for the entire boss fight very easily without needing the well user to use these 2 right here. Also, all the general mods that were in the old system are still here, so for example Dynamo, Ashes to Assets, Hands On, all of your targeting, reload, reserves, stuff like that. The only difference with those is they're elemental based now and not weapon type based. But most importantly, the one I want to point out for all these journal mods is the orb based ones on your legs. The ones where when you pick up an orb of power, you get a chunk of a ability back, health regen, or whatever it is. I think these are the most broken ones in this new system because all the mods create orbs. There's going to be orbs all over the place. So for example, with double innervation, picking up an orb will give me a good 20% of my grenade back instantly, which is pretty big with how many orbs will be all over the place. So this system boils down to 2 different types of builds in my opinion. Both start off with ways to create orbs. You want 1 siphon on your helmet to create orbs from your weapons. Then you want 1 for whatever ability you're trying to build into, either firepower, heavy-handed, or even Reaper on your class item. And those will be the ways you create orbs to get the system off the ground. And the first build you can do with this system will be stacking as many of the fonts you need, depending on what stats you have, along with the weapon surges. Then add in at least 2 time dilations to increase the timer on the actual armor charges. And this system works really well together because as long as you have armor charge, you're going to be getting the benefit of all of the different mods at the same time. The fonts will max out your stats, and the surges will give you those damage increases to your weapons. And as mentioned before in the video, although a lot of these specs aren't that strong outside of these surges, you can have them all up at the same time, which is the benefit of these mods. And the other build you can make with this system is all about ability spam, and really you can only pick 1 ability and build into it. So once again, with the mods to create orbs, now instead of the fonts and surges, you want to run things like stacks on stacks along with charged up to not only hold more armor charges, but get to the max amount quicker with stacks on stacks. Then with all those stacks of armor charge, you're going to either use grenade kickstart, melee kickstart, utility kickstart, whatever you're trying to build into, to get a huge chunk of your ability back when you use it. And the pros of this style build is the effect is super strong. I will definitely get my grenade back extremely fast with a whole grenade build, but that's all you're going to really be getting back. It doesn't work for your melee, doesn't work for your class ability. It really only works for 1 ability and can't really overlap with others because when you use the ability, it consumes all stacks. So it's really just a one and done. And yeah, I think that is all about the armor charges you need to know. Once you played with it for a while, it's a pretty simple system, but with the right build, it can still be extremely powerful. Anyways, like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.